So thank you all for coming. Just want to say we appreciate your interest and that we look forward to getting your questions. How we're going to do this is that I'm going to say a few words about the complaint. Then Tabitha Polmore is going to read the statement of one of our clients, one of the complainants, Cassandra Keating. And she'll say a few words after that. And then we'll pass it over to our current NAACP of the Rutland area branch, Mia Schultz, to speak a little bit more about the context of this complaint and about Bennington. So I'll get started. I guess I want to be clear that this is a very simple case. Our clients, Cassandra Keating and Joelle Fowler, sought help for their family after experiencing numerous instances of racially motivated targeting and harassment by Bennington police for the 2 months they lived in Bennington last year. After those experiences, they made complaints to the Bennington Police Department. They filed formal complaints. They never heard back. 2 months later, without warning, their identities, status as complainants, and a vast amount of personal information, including videos of them, were revealed by the Bennington Select Board during an open Select Board meeting. Now, Bennington Select Board made this identity disclosure of these complainants in accordance with its illegal policy that they would release all information of police misconduct complaints unless the officer was actually found to have violated a Bennington police policy. But the Bennington Select Board knows that because it was told by the International Association of Chiefs of Police and countless community members that many people in its community, especially people of color, are afraid to ask for help or to make complaints about police conduct because they fear retaliation from police, from town officials, and from others in their community. And this is something that not only the ICP said and has talked about, but the Department of Justice, the United States Department of Justice, has noted in many different reports that it's vital that complainants of police misconduct, that their identities are protected. Otherwise, people fear retaliation and are less likely to come forward. The board should also know that the Public Records Act and other Vermont police accountability laws protects complainants of government abuse and government malfeasance from identity disclosure. And instead of obeying these laws and these obvious norms, the Bennington Select Board chose to go a different way. And what they chose to do was violate our clients' privacy, cause them to fear for their safety, so much so that they relocated to another state. And again, the Select Board's actions seem intended to discourage other people from reporting discrimination and police misconduct by the Bennington Police Department. And this case is not a one-off. It's another example in, sadly, the town's long history of subjecting Black and brown people to over-policing, racial discrimination, and fear in their own community. Bennington needs a fair process of police review that protects its complainants. That is not happening now. And it needs a fair process that does not discourage those complainants from coming forward. Otherwise, things won't change in Bennington. And this is why Cassandra and Joelle, Ms. Keating and Mr. Fowler, with the support of the ACLU, the NAACP of the Rutland area, and many others, have filed a complaint with the Human Rights Commission and are asking the Human Rights Commission to review whether the Select Board's policy is discriminatory in itself and whether the Select Board's actions here constitute unlawful discriminatory retaliation. So I'll stop there, and I want to hand it off to Tabitha Polmore, who is going to read a statement from one of our clients, Cassandra Keating, about her experience. You know, she couldn't be here today, but this is her, in her own words, describing her experience and her feelings about the situation. And I should say that after Mia's discussion of the context of Bennington, we'll open it up for questions. Tabitha?
Thanks, Jay. I had the honor of working with Cassandra and Joelle when they first contacted the NAACP to talk about their situation. And I've got to say, it's both horrifying and not surprising considering what we've been dealing with in Bennington County repeatedly for years. And Mia's going to talk to that. But these are Cassandra's own words in terms of her experience with Bennington, Vermont. When Joelle, my daughter, and I moved to Vermont, we moved there because I wanted to pursue the career of my dreams in law enforcement. We wanted to do this together as a family that we never had the opportunity to do before. For example, camping, fishing, and hiking. I wanted to become a police officer. I just graduated college and earned my degree in criminal science. I did not want to work in a city. I wanted to work in a town, so I decided to apply with an agency in Vermont. I was accepted and went to the police academy and took the exam. I had big hopes and dreams of being able to raise my children in the county, and my vision from an outsider looking in was that people in the county would be more kind than in the city and hold the door for the person behind them. Little things like that were what I wanted so badly for my family. But once we arrived in Vermont, our experience was much different. It was nothing that we had ever imagined. The Bennington Police Department targeted us because Joelle is a Black man. Nobody at the town did anything about it. It was a really sad situation that we feared the people that were supposed to protect us. When we wrote complaints against the police department for targeting us, they were ignored. Then the select board exposed our personal information, license plate numbers, vehicle descriptions, addresses, everything they could find, they made public. They also publicly bashed us in the local media. After that, Joelle and I left Vermont in fear. I feel like the police department and the town were doing whatever they could to scare us out of town. We literally left with the clothes on our backs. I left food in the fridge, dishes in the cabinet, and all of our furniture. I slept on a cold floor for months just to get away from Bennington. Our experience in Vermont was traumatizing. Moving to Bennington was the worst mistake I ever made. I now fear the police and local officials. I feel like the town of Bennington got what they wanted. They scared an entire family out of Vermont, and we will not return. But I have a voice, and I will continue to advocate for myself and my family, and I will continue to share my experience with others, including other families who may be considering a move to Vermont. Thank you for listening to my story. I'd like to reiterate that Vermont does not have a problem with recruiting brown and Black people to come to the state. We have a problem with the way they are treated when they come. And Joelle and Cassandra's statement is evidence of that. I'd like to turn it over to President Mia Schultz, who will give a little more context.
Thank you. Thank you, Tabitha. That was really emotional for me. I remember this so well, you and I working on this. My name is Mia Schultz, and I'm currently the president of the Rutland area NAACP, which also includes Bennington. But before I was president of this branch, I was an advocate, and I worked closely with Tabitha, Tabitha Moore, the founding president of the branch. But even before all of this happened with Joelle and with Cassandra, myself and a group of concerned citizens were working toward the creation of a citizens oversight committee, and major progress was being made towards that direction. We kept getting rejection from the select board despite the fact that there was no mechanism in place for the public to file a complaint against the police. And feeling that pressure, this town feeling the pressure of the IACP report, International Association for Chiefs of Police, we also reapproached the select board with the idea of creating a citizens oversight board, and once again we were rejected by the select board. But the report was revealing, and we all have read the report. Numerous articles have been out on the report, and it created, it showed that there was no mechanism in place. And so what the Bennington Police Department did was create a section on their website called Compliments and Complaints. And Joelle and Cassandra were the first to use that system to file a complaint, and it failed miserably. The town of Bennington still had no mechanism once that complaint was received in order to create a space of best practices to hear complaints. And this is a repeated pattern in the town of Bennington. Despite having resources literally handed to them by concerned citizens who did a lot of legwork and created an ordinance and provided it for them, they still decided that they knew what was best for the community, that they knew the best way to address complaints, and they were terribly wrong. I remember when Joelle and Cassandra were in my living room with their beautiful young child, and Tabitha had just finished helping them formulate their complaint, and they came to me for support in filing it. And while we were aware of the culture of Bennington, we were just not aware of the retaliation. We were just taken aback that the retaliation would be so severe, that they would broadcast this family's personal information and thereby putting them in danger. The select board literally ran this family out of town. They put their lives at risk, including their small child, all to set the example to the rest of the community not to complain. These people asked for help, and instead they received retaliation. This targeting in Bennington is part of a culture that defends white supremacy and leaves the vulnerable unprotected. It starts at the highest level of running the town and goes through to the police chief. It allows for a system that goes unchecked and serves only a few. This is systemic, and it damages our town, our community, our places of business, and most of all, human beings. With that being said, they're still, in this moment, revering the practices of the police department, despite the fact that over and over, data shows that the police here overstop Black and brown drivers. In fact, in a recent select board meeting, the police department revealed their 2020 data, and they revealed it in a way that it looked and appeared to show that there is no discrimination or bias happening in their stops. When I was able to collect the entirety of that data and use a system that UBM and Seppi Sanguino and her partners were able to put together, we found that the search rate still is 3.9% more compared to 1% for white drivers, and that 80% of Black drivers are being stopped greater than their share of driving population. And the result is that Black drivers are more likely to get warnings than white drivers, because at the end of the day, their stops are wrong, that they're targeting Black and brown people wrongly. This was a family that just wanted to have a new life in Vermont, like any other family. And they were targeted from the time that they set their foot down on this soil that we call the Green Mountain. And they were run out of town literally by our highest level of government in this town. Thank you.
Mia, thank you for your words. I want to take a moment to just recognize and thank Tabitha Moore, Mia Schultz, and I also want to thank Stefan Gillum, who is here, representing the NAACP branch from Windham County. With this, I think we'll open it up for questions. So if you have a question, you can just unmute yourself and go ahead.
I have a question. This is Emma Cotton from VT Digger. I'm wondering if the complaint focuses on the select board specifically, or if it's also extended to the policing that occurred.
Thank you, Emma. The complaint itself is directed at the select board's actions. So it's specific to the retaliation of revealing their identities of Mr. Fowler and Ms. Keating, and the select board's policy of doing this for everyone who submits a complaint, because that's going to discourage and scare many Benningtonians and people who come to Bennington from filing such complaints in the future.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Ethan McCooley from the Bennington Free Press. I was just curious, going back to that compliments and complaints system that you mentioned, Mia, when was that first sort of launched? Do you remember?
I don't have the exact date. It would have been, I want to, last year in 2020, I believe, because that is when we filed the complaint, I believe. So it might have been in the beginning of the year. Jay, do you have more information when that was put? It was shortly after the IACP report was released.
Yes, sorry, Mia. Yeah, so just to add to what Mia said, the IACP report required this, or it said that recommended that the police department implement this and that the town implement it as well on its website. Obviously that's fairly low-hanging fruit. The report also said that the town should implement a citizen police advisory commission and a citizen review board made up of diverse members of the community. Notably here, as it relates to this case, the select board made itself the citizen review board. It didn't create that review board of diverse members of the community. And that is, as far as I'm aware, still the case today.
Thanks.
Hey, everybody. Peter Hirschfeld, Vermont Public Radio here. Jay, you said that what the select board did constituted a statutory violation. Can you isolate for us the provision in the statute that was violated?
Sure. The statute is in the Public Records Act. It's 1 VSA 317C42. And it's the statute specifically says something to the effect of people who make complaints against government entities related to abuse of power or illegal conduct or government malfeasance, shall not have their identities or personal information revealed without their consent.
Thank you. And Mia or Tabitha, if you're willing, can you share with us what the targeting consisted of that these former Bennington residents tried to bring to the attention of authorities there?
I can start, and then Mia has been following the case since I left Rutland County. When I went out to meet with Cassandra and Joelle, I've never seen a stack thicker of citations. It was just citation after citation after citation for menial things. It was very clear based on just the sheer volume and then looking at the content of the citations that it was targeting. Little things like around riding his motorcycle, and then they would start to pile on to the point where the town of Bennington was inundating them, flooding them with letters saying that they hadn't responded to prior complaints. There were I kid you not when I say the stack was this thick of complaints or of citations from the Bennington Police Department. And they were scared at that point. And our work was to try to keep them here and to try to connect them with the ACLU and Human Rights Commission and other resources that could support them so that they could maintain here and to take them through the process that's supposed to work. But everything about what was happening to them was just inundating them with citations. And pulling Joelle over every chance they had. Talking to people, and I don't want to say too much. Jay might cut me off here, but talking to their neighbors, trying to get other people to think that they were disclosing this information, saying that Joelle was dangerous and bad. Police officers going to other people and saying these things because they would patrol him so much that they would see who he was hanging out with, wait till he left, and then go talk to those people.
Yeah,
and try to isolate them.
I like to notate it as 12 tickets in 22 days. Like, I'm sure if I was to be followed around constantly, I might get as many tickets just for minor things. But actually, I also wanted to make point that this just goes to the systemic issue of it. Like, this is not about Joel and what he's done or what anybody's done. This is about the select board, and this is about the Bennington Police Department and how the select board protects the police department and does not protect all of its citizens. And it's also about, not just about Black and brown people, because all of us who are somehow othered are being targeted by the police department and discouraged from speaking out about it. And I see this in our school board meetings, and I see this at our select board meetings, that there is only a select few of people who are allowed to speak. And if you dare speak out of turn, they will retaliate. And that's what this case is about, retaliation.
Hi, this is Derek from 7 Days. Two things. First, I'm wondering if you could speak a little more to why you've chosen this avenue to seek some redress and what you hope comes out of the HRC complaint. What power does the commission have to help rectify the situation, and are there other avenues that are being explored?
Sure. So the Human Rights Commission process is the typical process you go through when you have a complaint under the Vermont's anti-discrimination law. So we have decided to use that process. Because what the Human Rights Commission can do if they accept the complaint and investigate it is have access to is to look at everything, and they have authority to investigate every aspect of the case, to require the town of Bennington to provide documents, to to submit to testimony and depositions, things like that. And so we hope that they will do that, and that process is relatively quick. It usually wraps up in less than a year. So our hope is that the Human Rights Commission will accept the complaint, do an investigation, and then and resolve the case in our client's favor. There are other avenues we are considering, but for now we're focused on the Human Rights Commission process and ensuring that that some measure of justice can be done through that process.
Great, thanks. And my other question was whether this police targeting of Joel was did that continue or intensify after the complaints were filed about their conduct, or is the targeting? I guess I'm trying to understand the timeline between the complaint being filed and this 12 tickets in 22 days.
So those were, by and large, those were beforehand, but shortly after the select board revealed all their public information, Joel and Cassandra both left Vermont. They fled out of fear. And again, the bottom line here is that no one deserves to be treated the way they were treated, especially when they're asking for help, and especially by their elected representatives.
Great, thank you.
Does anybody recall the date of the select board meeting in question here?
Yes, the select board meeting took place on July 22nd, 2020. It's still available on, I believe, I'm not sure.
Were you in attendance, Mia, at that particular select board meeting?
Yes, it was virtual. And yeah, I mean, I was there for as much as I could bear it.
So did you know that the select board had been planning to disclose their identities? I mean, can you sort of take me through the moment when you realized what was happening and your immediate reaction in that moment?
I did not know that they were going to do it. As I said, it was a surprise. My immediate reaction was anger. And it was actually after the fact brought up to them, individuals on the select board, and they invoked using Supreme Court law to justify their decision in disclosing that. Now, the ACLU has found that they were completely in error and wrong about that. And actually, I felt it interesting that they were invoking a made-up law, if you could say. They were invoking a made-up law when there was a real true Vermont Supreme case ruling with Shamel Alexander indicating that he had received racial harassment from the police, and they won't invoke that law, and they dispute that law, but they are making up laws for the Vermont Supreme Court to determine whether or not they expose people and how they retaliate. So it's just an interesting way that they call in the law. I hope that answered your question, Peter.
It did, thank you. And I'm sorry to monopolize like this. I just have one more question. I promise I'll be done. I'll shut up. I read something in the Bennington Banner yesterday where town officials said they had no foreknowledge of what was going to be coming out today. Jay, has anybody from the ACLU worked with or contacted town officials over the course of this investigation?
We sent them a copy of the complaint this morning and look forward to working with them through the Human Rights Commission process.
I have a question. I mean, this might step outside of the boundaries of this particular complaint, but we've obviously just seen this pattern of retaliation in previous cases around the state. And I was just curious, to anybody's knowledge about just what sorts of support can be given to families that do decide to leave at some point. I know I'm working on a story right now about something similar happening in Washington County. So I was just curious, for Vermonters of any race or position who leave out of this retaliation, has the NAACP worked with people to sort of set them up for relocating to other parts of the country, or just anything you can sort of comment on that about?
Sure, yeah, no, we don't have a system in place for helping people relocate. I feel like that would be the responsibility of the people who are forcing them out of town. That's not my responsibility to find. I want more people who look like us to be here so that we can have a vital and thriving community of all people. So to me, it's more important to support them while they're here and to make sure that they have all of the things that they need to thrive in the state. So yeah, I hope that answered your question, Ethan.
Thanks.
Hi, I have a question. My name is Tiffany from the Bennington Banner. I just wanted to ask if you can provide any specifics on what type of action your clients or the ACLU is looking at specifically in response to the complaint. For instance, are you looking for any specific type of change in policy within the town or for certain people to be removed from their positions?
So I can speak on the behalf of the ACLU here and our clients, Mr. Fowler and Ms. Keating. The complaint asked the select board to change its policy, and I think we continue to do that. They can do that on their own tomorrow if they so wish. To change its policy of identity disclosure, they should have a policy of protecting the identities of complainants in accordance with the law. And they should protect those identities wherever possible, because otherwise it's clear that people will be less likely to file complaints, in particular, people of color. And so that's what we're asking for. We're also asking, the ACLU is also asking for, and in conjunction with the Rutland area branch NAACP and others, for the select board to provide for and abide by the recommendations of the IACP to create an independent citizen review board that is made up of diverse members of the Bennington community Same with the Police Advisory Board, and to really take note of the systemic nature of what keeps happening in Bennington. And you know, it's great if they're trying to do some things, but they need to do more. They don't need to try harder, they need to do. And that's what we're asking here. And I'll let Mia, you should also speak to this, because there's some information in the press release about what we're seeking, but Mia, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Jay. That was like, I would just echo everything. They need to stop trying and just do it and listen to the people who are most impacted and the people who are most vulnerable, and really like have those conversations and not decide that they are the only ones who know what to do. And that includes having an advisory committee, a citizens oversight committee, in which is a diverse group of people from all backgrounds who are looking at these complaints with their lenses and their various experience with law enforcement and in general. You know, it starts all the way at the top, this complicity. And, you know, transformation is hard, and sometimes you gotta look at the people who have been running things for 30, 40 plus years, and if they're not willing to bend despite all of this like negative press like that has come upon Bennington, then maybe we need to relook at who's running things in this town, and maybe there's a different alternative.
Are there any other questions from media?
All right, we'll leave it at that. Thank you all for attending. We really appreciate your involvement. And if you have follow-up questions, you can contact the ACLU Communications Director, Shabnam Beth Nolan, or you can also contact Mia Schultz and let us know if you have any follow-up questions. And I guess I'll just leave it by saying, you know, this case, again, is not a one-off. It is representative of what happens in Bennington, of the systemic nature of discrimination in Bennington, and also the systemic nature of discrimination across Vermont. We see it in local communities around the state, and this is what it looks like, and this is what needs to stop. So thank you all.
Thank you all.
Be well.
Thank you.